Welcome to the Six Rings Cane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
And welcome back, Canes fans, to the Six Rings Cane Show. Real quick before we get it going, want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks, for the night. It's real simple. We'll go through it real quick. Here's the good thing, right? As soon as you sign up, make sure you put in the code FIVE, F-I-V-E, and Prize Picks will match your initial deposit up to $100. Make sure you sign up today. What's great about it is you can actually just pick players from different leagues, different sports, match them up all together. It all depends on how much you want to win. You can select between 2 to 5 players and pick the over/under on their individual categories, and then just go ahead and win some money there. So it's a real fun app. Make sure you sign up. When you sign up, you log in and put the code word 5 to get a match on your initial deposit up to $100. That's prizepicks.com. Again, code word 5, F-I-V-E. prizepicks.com. Check them out. And let's get it going. We'll bring everybody in now. All right, there we go. There we go. Good evening, everybody. As you guys can see, the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Donno joins us on the program today on the show. What's going on, Donno? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. Actually, I'm lying. I just spent about 45 minutes playing Xbox, and I'm nauseous. Like I'm not built for video games. I haven't felt this bad since I watched the Middle Tennessee game. It was a rough experience.
Yeah, I can't play video games anymore either. You know what happens to me is I will end up I'll put an all-nighter, and I can't do that. I can't pull all-nighters anymore.
Same here, Jess. Same here. It's not good. It's not good.
And I only play sports games. Like I can't play first-person shooter. I can't do any of that.
I'm
There's no way.
I
am the worst at it. I'm not even great at the sports game. So I mean,
you gotta play sports football games. That's how you become smart in the coaches, and you tell them how to do their job. Man, how are you gonna do that?
Yeah, it's like we can all call plays better than them, right?
I know.
Like I mean,
I can break down.
It's gotta work in the real game.
I could break down film with the best of them. Oh man, you know what's fun though? It's game week again, baby, right? And so we get to either cry a little bit more or put a smile on our face.
Before that, I gotta take us all over a tangent because I always do. Have you guys heard of this Fat Bear Week thing?
No, I have no idea.
So my friend got me into this at work, and I guess this Alaska National Park, the bears come out of hibernation, and they do like before and after pics to show who got the fattest. They do like a bracket, and you compete against it.
That would be interesting.
She's live tweeting it right now. I had to get away from that to do this, but
they're doing
the bracket reveal. It's like a selection show. They're like this fat bear against this fat bear, and then like they're breaking down the matchups, and like this one's a little bead. That's
where's this at? Where's this at?
It's at Katmai National Park. There's a Twitter account, Katmai NPS, but they do this Fat Bear Week. So
where's that located? Where's that national park located?
Alaska.
Well, there you go.
So they do a bracket, and then you vote like all week, and bears keep advancing.
That's unbelievably ridiculous.
Oh, it's awesome. But apparently there's other things than just being fat. She's got she's breaking it down like Jay Billis breaking down the NCAA tournament bracket. She's like, that one was a little aggressive. I think that's gonna hurt it. That's probably not a champion.
I honestly didn't expect us to start off the show.
Like I said, I always got to come up with some kind of tangent, whether it's kickball or Fat Bear. There's got to be something.
The Miami Hurricanes defense needs to
look. See, that's what we don't want to talk about. So that's why I'm talking about Fat Bear Week. They need to come out of
hibernation this week.
If we're 4-0, I would not be talking about Fat Bear Week. All right.
I appreciate the Bears segue because
I like that, DJ. I like that. I like that coming out of hibernation, the offense and the defense both. Yeah, look, it's a big game. It's an ACC opener. We've got a tough matchup against a really great offense. Obviously, we want to talk about how we should be able to score with on them, right? Because their defense is not that good. Let's kind of pause for a second and take a step back and realize we've been struggling on offense as well. So as much as I think we can score with them, I think I'm more concerned with Drake May, Josh. I think it's Josh Downs, right? And that offense. That is a formidable offense there. They score points. They score with the best of them. But I did mention their defense is not great, Donno. Kind of give me your thoughts on, just it's been a week now since the MTSU loss, right? And we've seen what they've done. We've seen what other teams that we've played have done. We've seen what Texas A&M did. and then they kind of dropped one to a Mississippi State team. Although they're a pretty good Mississippi State team, I will say that that's a really good team over there. This college season has been kind of wacky, if you ask me. There's a lot of teams that are underachieving, some that are overachieving, some that came out of nowhere. Right? You've got the Kansas of the world. You've got all this going on. Where does Miami fit in, and how do they prepare for ACC play now? With just the state of how college football is right now, where you can't really gauge who's. I mean, aside from like Georgia and Alabama, you can't really gauge who's really, really good yet, right? Like, this is kind of crazy for me.
Well, it's crazy because I think that some of the things you're seeing, mainly because of the transfer portal, how even non-power five teams that have no bid. I'm not like making excuses for what happened against Middle Tennessee, but it's not the only time we've seen it around the country. I mean, Notre Dame lost to Marshall, App State. I know they give everybody problems, but they really shouldn't have had any business beating Texas A&M on the road. So I think you see it now more than ever with the transfer portal, because players who normally wouldn't end up on group of five teams are sometimes making that jump just to get more playing time somewhere. It's so easy to move. So I think you're seeing, a lot of people thought that like with NIL, and maybe it'll end up playing out this way, that there was going to be like less parity in college football. But I think with transfer portal, in some cases in NIL, there's actually more parity in college football. And, maybe that might kind of change as we sort of settle out of the wild, wild west state that we're in. As far as Miami preparing for ACC play, they got to get back to their identity. I know people say, you shouldn't judge a team on their best day and you shouldn't judge the team on their worst day, that you kind of go by the average. And at least not that things have been perfect by any stretch, but at least in the first 3 games of the year, you saw Miami looking more physical than they have in years, up front, blocking well. The running game was on point. You need to bring that back, because against Middle Tennessee, you had basically problematic everywhere outside of like Keyshawn Smith and Frank Ladson, who played pretty well, and then that backup punter who kicked pretty much everybody else played poorly in that game, including you completely lost your physicality. Like the offensive lineman just never got out of bed that day. So you need to get that back, of course. Defensively, we spoke with defensive coordinator Kevin Steele today, and he basically said, first of all, these are his words, put all the blame on me for all those coverage breakdowns, because Miami gave up those 4 massive passing plays, which was just, in coverage, they were really breaking. And he took the blame, basically saying, I either need to put my players in better positions, or if there are certain players who, can't cover in certain ways, it's my job to make sure I'm not putting them on an island. Like, he put that all on himself. And then, I'm not going to beat around the bush, because I know everyone wants to talk about Miami's passing game, because it is going to be Tyler Van Dyke. Cristobal confirmed that twice today. The TVD is still the starting quarterback. It's not just on Tyler. It's every aspect of the passing game needs to get better. They need to call plays. Josh Gaddis getting guys in better positions to succeed. Wide receivers need to hold on to footballs. And yeah, Tyler needs to be better, because, I start getting frustrated, guys, seeing the conversations that people are having where they're like, no, it's all Tyler's fault, or it's all Josh Gaddis. This guy's a fraud. This guy's terrible because this, former Ohio State wide receiver coach with that little criminal past has like dedicated his entire YouTube channel basically to trashing Josh Gaddis and making personal attacks on the guy. I think that's influencing a lot of people out there. And then, obviously Tyler has also had trouble connecting with receivers. So it's like, I really hope that the bye week came at the right time, right? Because you have to hope that the Middle Tennessee game was rock bottom, because if Miami plays that badly again, they may not even be able to beat Georgia Tech on their worst day, right? Because Georgia Tech just won a game that they weren't supposed to win. So I'm assuming Miami's going to be better than they were the rest of the year than against Middle Tennessee. And I'm hoping that bye week maybe got a few people healthy, right? Because the running back field was pretty banged up last week. Hopefully Henry Parrish and Jalen Knighton are going to be okay. And hopefully Van Dyke has maybe gone back to some of the basics, and he's going to come out more confident next week.
Well, that's what I really wanted to get into first and foremost, because we did hear the news that Tyler Van Dyke is going to be the starting quarterback, at least for the North Carolina game, and potentially moving forward. And I like it though, because he's riding with his guy. I know he mentioned, you can't judge or you can't, punish a player for one bad game or something like that. He said something along those lines, right? And I get that he is protecting his players. Tyler Van Dyke's had more than one bad game, right? Let's be honest, right? He hasn't looked good for all 4 games. He hasn't looked great. So, but bottom line is, if he's practicing better than the other guys, whether it's Jake or whether it's Jakari, whoever it is, and he is, for all intents and purposes, looking like the starter in practice, he's the guy that you have to go with, right? Again, last year he was an absolute stud, right? I mean, he came in with all the all the potential accolades of the Heisman, the Heisman candidate. He's a first round pick. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country, yada yada yada, and he's kind of hasn't lived up to those expectations. However, I think we'll answer that question because I think, Rob, that's an important question to ask. But I want to get your take, Vish and DJ, on Cristobal going ahead and naming TVD the starting quarterback right off the bat this week. How do you feel about that? And how do you think he's going to perform now against UNC?
So I don't think it's that big of a surprise, and I think this is what we signed up for. So what you're going to get is stability and consistency, right? As opposed to the previous haphazard fly by the seat of the pants. I mean, we subbed Tate Martell into a bowl game because fans were screaming about it, right? So, I'm sorry if people are upset by this. You hired a real coach now. He's not going to be there and be like, oh, the fans want Jake Garcia. Let me play him. He put an offseason program together. He's trying to build consistency and build program culture. And dumping your quarterback that you built your whole offseason program around we talked about this a little last week. Garcia's first 2 passes were great. And after that, it was the same offense that Van Dyke was playing with. So I think people got so excited after those 2 throws. The rest of the game, he was 8 of 17 because he ended up 10 of 19. I mean, it was not some kind of masterpiece where you're like, you got to play this guy. So he's going to put the guy in there he thinks is better, which is why he put in Van Dyke to start the year. And he's going to play him. And I know there's a talk about how long leash does he have. I think it's going to be a pretty long one because that's his guy. And you know what? Sometimes you can be that way to a fault. But overall, as a program, you'll make up better because the players will respect you. They know you have their back, right? I'm not going to bow down to media pressure or fans yelling at me. I know what I'm doing, and you know what you're getting with me. That is exactly what we signed up for. In this offense where everyone's like, why aren't we running last year's offense? This is what we signed up for. You knew what we were getting, and all of a sudden people are like, we got the thing we asked for. You want to go back to last year, really? You really want to go back to that mess? Come on, what are we talking about? It was always going to be painful at the beginning.
Yeah.
So this is part of it, but I love that he's being consistent. I love that there's stability there now. Whether or not he eventually wins here, I don't know. But it's funny how quickly we revert back to let's just do what we've been doing. Let's yo-yo quarterbacks in and out like Mark Richt did. Randy Shands last year, Ja'Cory Harris was never not named the starter. It was just Stephen Morris was starting. You want to go back to that nonsense? Really? How about we let this guy work through his process? So I am happy he's making strong decisions and owning them and not equivocating. And that's what you need to ultimately, as much as we all want to win the Coastal this year and, we never want to lose a game, he's thinking 2-3 years down the road, how am I going to be successful? You got to create that program culture. And part of that is sticking with guys through their rough patches. If every player knows I'm going to yank you out because you have a bad, I know it, you could say longer than a bad one game, but I'm going to assume he's practicing better than Garcia. They're not putting the worst player out there or who they determine to be the worst player. Right?
And by the way, that's not a knock on Jake Garcia. I think Jake Garcia has a bright future here. He's super talented. He might be the most talented quarterback, but he's got deficiencies right now that he needs to work on that you can see.
And it's unfair to expect him to be where Van Dyke is when Van Dyke played the second half of last year and got all the first team reps through the entire offseason. He's definitely going to be ahead.
Right.
And the other thing that you don't want to create culture-wise is, and I hear our fans say this all the time, this season's lost, just throw the young players in there. Let's get them experience. What kind of culture are you setting for your program?
And people are saying that before they played a single conference game.
Yeah, but that's definitely true, so it's even more absurd. But even if it was in the 10th game, you're never going to be better off long-term as a program by putting players in that are worse, that did not earn that spot. That freshman that you think is going to get experience, he'd be a lot better off earning that spot than just getting playing time for not working for it. That's exactly how you end up with the culture we've had. Is people expecting things they don't deserve and they don't earn.
Right.
So he's forcing it on them. Whether or not either of these quarterbacks can run and click with this offense, like Donno said, there's a whole lot of stuff going on here that needs to get corrected. But just looking at the one quarterback, I'm like, well, he's the problem. And also, just if you watch college football, I hate to say this, but a lot of college football, a lot of football in general now is you get one-on-one matchups, you throw the ball up into one-on-one coverage, and the receiver just goes and gets it. Our guys never do that. So it's the bar. We have to get people wide open to catch things if they catch it. And I'm not saying they're not missing throws, because certainly Van Dyke, I mean, that last throw he threw last week, he missed Skinner by like 10 yards, right? It was bad. So I'm not saying he's been perfect, but you look at these high-level teams executing, it's all, oh, I got isolated with my best receiver one-on-one. I'm just throwing it there. I don't care if it's covered.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned the offense, right? And you see these offenses and how they're played. You mentioned Coach Lashley's offense last year, right? And how everybody wants to revert back to this, Coach Lashley offense. And oh my God, we scored so many points. Yeah, but we really didn't score so many points down at the end either, right? So here's the thing, right? Like, and I'm not saying we are them, but you look at Georgia and you look at Alabama and you look at teams like that, and even Michigan, right? The top 4 teams, let's just say, okay? You look at them, and what type of offense are they running? Same kind of offense we're running, right? And I understand we might not have the horses that they do right now, but the best teams in college football win with those type of offenses. They don't win with the run and gun, the Mike Leach offenses of the world. You see how the Mike Leach offense is as exciting as it is, because I hear a lot of people saying this offense is boring. This offense is boring. But it's not going to be boring if in 2 or 3 years they've got it going, right? Like the Alabamas and the Georgias that are putting up 40 and 50 points, okay? And they're winning football games. And they're winning national titles. Like, that's the whole point, right? Yeah, you can win per se with that run and gun style offense, that Lashley offense. But at the end of the day, really good defenses like those SEC defenses will figure that out, and they will put a stop to it, right? So I think that people need to kind of give it a chance for and look, I know that a lot of people aren't happy either with the way Gaddis runs his wide receiver schemes, right? His passing schemes are a little suspect. His running schemes are great. We saw it the first 3 games. We saw them struggle against MTSU because he kind of did some things to try to open things up for Tyler Van Dyke, to try to get him more comfortable. And the running game regressed a little bit. I think he needs to go back to that running game and then just try to figure it out on offense. With the passing.
This is where there was lack of production from the receivers, some through injuries, some through just the talent was down there anyway.
Sure.
It kills because Alabama's not throwing 400 passes a game like out into the flat like Lashley did, but when they throw, it's chunks, it's big plays. We're not making. That's why the offense is like pulling teeth. If you to your point, Jazz, until Middle Tennessee, you take our running game, you give that to the offense score, like, oh, I'm going to throw like 15 passes for 400 yards because they're going to have to stack up the run. We can't complete anything. So I think it's hard to say. I guess my problem is we're blaming the quarterback, we're blaming the receivers, and we're blaming the coordinator. It's probably, shared blame across the board. But let's fire this guy, let's fire that guy, let's bench this guy.
That doesn't work, man.
It's like a science experiment. You can't change all the variables at once. You don't even know what you're fixing.
Well, and I'll add a couple things to what Vishnu said, because you hit everything on the head, first of all. So I don't even need to comment on what you said, because I agree everything you talked about with the culture and all that. Just when we had a chance to speak with Cristobal today, one thing, this is me kind of reading into his words, because he didn't say this so directly, but I think he understands, and he was hinting to us that a lot of this is not Tyler's fault, right? And listen, Cristobal wasn't going to go on and say, oh, and by the way, yeah, a lot of the passing scheme has been suspect, right, to use your word, and we can't catch a pass, right? Like, he didn't come out and say those things, but he did repeatedly say that he kind of understands that with the scheme change and with some of the other variables around Tyler, like Cristobal said it, that a lot of this is not his fault, right? So, yeah, I think it goes back to what Vish was talking about with, a lot of previous coaches would panic and they'd start to play musical quarterbacks. And then that's the second part of what I'm saying here is I think Mario understands that if you, and maybe this day will come, and I hope it doesn't, But if you're going to bench Tyler to start a game, because it's one thing to bench him in the middle of a game when things were going the way that they're going, but if you're gonna have going into a game with Jake as the starter, you basically have to understand you can't turn back, right? That if you take it away from Tyler and give it to Jake, then that's the end of the line. And it's probably the end of the line for Tyler in Miami. So I think Mario, in wanting to create that stability and create that culture, understands we need to give Tyler and the entire passing game a chance to kind of play their way out of this, right? So I think he realizes that I can't do what Mark Richt did with Nkosi and Malik. I can't do what Randy Shannon was doing with Robert Marv and Ja'Cory Harris. Like, I can't just flip-flop it depending on how I feel when I wake up that morning. That if I hand it to Jake, it's Jake's team, and I don't think he's ready to do that yet, because I think he understands that a lot of these Tyler Van Dyke problems are not all his fault.
I agree.
Go ahead, DJ. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I was just gonna say I agree. I think there's a lot of components to this offense that aren't clicking right now. And you guys kind of brought up a very good point when talking about the top tier programs and their offenses. You look at a team like Ohio State, for example, or even Gaddis's Michigan team last year. They had two capable running backs in Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. They had, playmaking wide receiver in Cornelius Johnson, and they had solid quarterback play. And that was something that elevated Michigan to the top in a crowded Big Ten conference. I think that's what Miami kind of wants to establish here, and that's what a lot of these elite programs have. They have elite running back play, good wide receiver play, and good quarterback play, and together that creates a sort of balance that keeps defenses off guard. So I think when you have at least one of those things missing, then it makes the offense a little jumbled, especially with Gaddis coming from Michigan and having those three very good elements. It's kind of creating a struggle for him and the rest of the offense right now, and that includes Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah, I honestly think that Gaddis is still trying to figure it out a little bit with this team as well, getting to kind of know the players that he's working with. You made a good point, DJ. You mentioned it. I mean, he's got a kid. The kid right now is a Heisman. He's, for all intents and purposes, he might be a Heisman front runner right now. Blake Corum. He's running like a bat out of hell. He's doing an amazing job over there. I kind of wanted to answer a question here from Utown. The first one is, how hard is it to hit open receivers? TBD was missing big time. Yeah, he was missing on some big time some throws big time, right? He did miss a couple of throws, and then there is some plays where there is some wide receivers running free or running open. But you got to understand, and now I kind of want to dish it to you, Donno, on this question. Like, for me, that position, quarterback, is hard, man, because sometimes, and I don't want to, by any means, I don't want to say that I understand, but playing, and this is stupid, it might be a stupid comparison, but playing flag football, I've played flag football for over 20 years, right? And sometimes you want to get that first down. You want to hit a guy. You want to get a guy, you want to get a guy the ball. You want to get a first down or something. And you tend to kind of miss what's going on the other side of the football. I mean, on the other side of the field, right? You might miss an open guy to try to fit it into someone else, even if the guy is wide open. You got to understand, these guys are making split-second decisions sometimes on the field, right? So this is tough when people are saying, oh, he's missing all these receivers open all the time. First of all, he's not. Second of all, if you're watching film, let's say, or if you're watching the game, some of these guys bust open after the ball's thrown, and you look at the other side of the field like, wow, he's wide open. Well, not necessarily. Remember, the play stops on the other side of the field at that point, right? So you might get a guy that looks wide open that really wasn't. I mean, and then, of course, he's probably hesitant to throw a guy open and to throw those difficult passes as well, because he is struggling also. I want to get your take on not only that, but what Mario did say at in the presser, right? As far as like, not, of course, he's not going to drag them under the bus. I mean, He's not going to do that to his players. I don't expect anything else from any coach. What's your take on him missing so much, and people saying, well, hey, there's so many wide receivers that have been open that he's missing? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see. I agree with you, not to what people say, because most Canes fans who have some knowledge of football, as most everyone does, if you watch, a lot of college football, a lot of NFL, would also say that these receivers are not creating separation. So which is it, right? Are they? Because if they aren't creating separation, he's not missing open receivers all the time. If they are creating separation, then maybe that's the case. So. I think that's been a big, big problem. And just to simplify it, and again, like I'm not making excuses for the guy. I'm just telling it like it is. He did lose by far his two best receivers last year. And he also lost his best receiver this year a couple of weeks ago. And by the way, the latest word on Xavier Restrepo is Cristobal said at least 5.5 more weeks. And so I think that would be maybe not even back in time for the Florida State game in early November. It may not be Georgia Tech or Clemson. It may not be until that range. So X is going to be out for a while longer. I think Jacoby George, he said that the timetable is less clear. I think what he's dealing with is a thumb, although that's never been confirmed. That's what the rumor has been. Cristobal said it's harder to do a timetable for Jacoby's injury. So it's just sort of guesswork, but, could be another several weeks for him. And so, yeah, in the meantime, like I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind maybe if Gaddis maybe tightens the receiver rotation a little bit, because there's a couple guys that are standing out more than others. I mean, I think we're seeing good stuff from Keyshawn Smith. I think we finally started to see some good stuff from Frank Ladson, because even Charleston Rambo was kind of a late bloomer last year. It took a few weeks, if I remember correctly, before he really got going. So maybe for Ladson, it would be the same thing. And, I know Brashard Smith has been very up and down, mostly down this year, but I know he's capable of being more consistent. So maybe you can focus on those guys. And it sounds like Elijah Arroyo is in jeopardy for this game, and he may miss a little bit of time. So, we need Will Mallory to play better. So I see not all of it, but I think a lot of it is just on these receivers and these tight ends needing to step up a lot more. But listen, I know the quarterback position is not easy to play. It's easy to be an armchair quarterback, right? Because I can do the same thing. I can go back and say, wow, well, listen, he didn't even see that side of the field. He's staring down his receivers. I know that's something that's driven us crazy watching Tyler this year. And I think just a lot of that is not really having confidence yet in this offense, because it's just so different from what he was running last year, and not having confidence in his receivers. So this is something where I really hope the extra time in the bye, because something Tyler has, I know he last week was working on doing some of the little things, like focusing more on his mechanics, because I think it's easy to kind of fall out of your good habits and fall into back habits. Things like your footwork and your posture when you're making throws. I know he was focusing a lot on that stuff last week. And another thing that I think is worth bringing up, it was kind of poetic how poorly he played last week, because that was a couple days after those comments of his surfaced about him talking about Hard Rock Stadium having no atmosphere. And then like people were pissed about that. Like, I don't know. For me, like when I hear athletes say things maybe they shouldn't say, for me, it kind of goes in one ear, out the other. Like I'm not really insulted by anything, but I heard from a handful of season ticket holders who were like, I will not support this guy. Like they were angry.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Personally, they took it personally what
I have
Tyler
thoughts.
said.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that stuff got back to him, and then he's getting booed out there. So if you don't think that can affect a player when they know that their own fans are angry at them and their own fans are booing them, I'm sure it affected him. People have a right to boo, I guess. So it's, it is what it is, but he needs to snap out of that in a hurry. Right. And it's just so many different factors that have been working against the entire passing game.
First of all, yeah, I think they took everything that he said out of context, but I know Vish, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no.
And by the way, hold on, I know Donno, we got to get you out of here in a couple minutes, if I'm not mistaken, as well, right? So
maybe like 9:05 would be good. A few minutes.
Cool, Vish.
I got a few more hot takes in me.
Yeah, give your thoughts, and then we'll kind of throw it to Donno for his hot takes and some keys to UNC's game.
Yeah, just I mean those, like you said, those were taken out of context. It was this reputable outlet Barstool stirring crap up. They weren't even made recently. They just pulled them out of an old interview and kind of selectively edited it, and And even in the out of context, all he said was, Miami doesn't really have a college atmosphere, which we know it doesn't. We're proud of that fact. So what is wrong with people? And I think this is where things spiral out of control. And yeah, he's going to hear the boos and all of that at the stadium. He's going to have to play through it now. But why we as a fan base don't want to put our players in a position to succeed is beyond me.
I know.
What good is this doing?
Yeah,
I mean, I know Barstool does it for clicks. I'm sure they got a lot of traffic on it. But
what do the fans do it for?
Yeah, like Donno was mentioning season ticket. I was like, I'm out on this kid. Really? Okay. Good. Now, what did that accomplish?
Give me your season tickets if you're out on Tyler Van Dyke.
There you go.
I love it.
Donate the DJ.
Donate the
I mean,
DJ.
that's not I guess my point is like, I understand being frustrated. We all get that way. I understand being upset. I never understand going to the stadium and heckling our own team and cheering against them and booing them.
Or wanting them to fail, period.
That's not going to make them play better.
Right.
So do you want to win?
I think people actually think that like if I boo the quarterback and then they switch quarterbacks that like I did that. Like I think people think that. And like I've already had people on Twitter telling me, and honestly, I can't tell who's joking and who's not. But like I saw somebody send me like the quote that they got to fly a Fire Gaddis banner plane over the stadium. And like I couldn't tell if that was like something they just did for fun or if that's something that they're really trying to do. But it's like I'm not saying you should be happy. Like bad football should not make you happy, and I get it. And it's why it's why we do shows like this, right? So people can vent and people can complain. But when you're actually sitting in the stadium booing your own players, what's your goal? Like if your goal is to make them play worse, then okay, you might accomplish that, but is that helping the team that you supposedly love? Like I don't understand what you're trying to do there. If you're actually going to go through the trouble and go to the game, either support them or keep your mouth shut, right? And people will say I pay all this money, I have the right to boo. And yeah, you do. It's America. No one's going to lock you up in a prison cell for booing your team. But is that really the way you want to help the team? Because you're not helping the team.
Yeah, I agree. Donald, before we get you out of here, just a couple of thoughts on the UNC game. What your keys are for Miami to be successful and to get out of ACC play with a W under their belt this Saturday.
It's a really, really interesting game coming up because I have a couple of people that I'm in very close contact with who cover UNC, including Isaac Shade, who hosts Locked On Tar Heels, and it's like both of these fan bases, I think, are going into this game not feeling very confident, right? I think in UNC's case, the UNC fans are like, well, we can't really stop anybody, and Miami's coming out of a bye, and they just lost to a bad team, and so they're going to be super angry at home. So they're nervous, and then of course Miami fans are nervous because the last time you watched your team play, they looked terrible, and a lot of people just assume, hey, if they were that bad against Middle Tennessee, they're going to be that bad every week, and they're going to go 2-10, and this is going to be the most embarrassing season ever. Miami's going to win some games. I don't know if it's going to be this week. I hope it's this week, but the big thing for me is they really have to bring back the physicality on both sides of the football. I think that's something that people take for granted is how much the offensive line really seemed to drop off last time out. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because the O-line was the strength of the team for the first 3 games. I need people like DJ Ivy to, for however long he's on the field, probably a lot, to, play the way that he did against Texas A&M, where it looked like, wow, not only is he not a liability, he looks really good that night. We were saying, like, we need him to step up. I need to see James Williams, who's usually excellent, but, he was getting run over by that running back last time out, which was, to me, looked like an effort thing more than anything else. And, and obviously you want Miami's defensive line to be disruptive because you're going up against the guy who is statistically the best quarterback in the ACC right now, or he's certainly up there because like Sam Hartman has looked really good as well. But I think Drake May is statistically the best in the ACC right now and one of the best in the country. And you're going up against an offense that averages over 500 yards. And so I don't think your defense is going to be completely able to stop them. I think it's inevitable. They're going to put up yards. They're going to put up points. But you need to make some timely stops and hopefully force some takeaways. And then if you're going to win this game, I believe you have to win it in a shootout, which means your offense is going to have to score. And so you know what you don't want to do? You don't want to commit 3 first-quarter turnovers like you did last week, because you were in quicksand for the entire game because of that. So I'm expecting to see a Canes team that starts the game with a chip on their shoulder, because everyone who put on the uniform last week, except maybe like 2 guys, should be embarrassed for the performance, against Middle Tennessee. So I want to see these guys hitting. I want to see these receivers getting open. I want to see your quarterback actually making crisp throws this time around. I want to see your offensive line shoving people on their asses and actually picking up some first downs on the ground, and hopefully your running backs are healthy again. And, at least, I'm at a point where, if, of course I want Miami to win this game, but my most important goal is that I want Miami to win every game. Believe me, like I want to see them play with some pride, because not only did they lose last time out, they just, they looked like a lot of these players and a lot of these units just kind of quit early on. So I'm expecting a lot better. And, hopefully the Hurricanes, who I haven't even looked at the odds yet this week. I'm assuming that Miami's the favorite, because I predicted it would probably open around 4.5.
I saw 3.
3. Okay. Yeah. I think the number is lower than I thought, because North Carolina did look really good against Virginia Tech, like a little bit better than I thought they would. So I think if they hadn't looked so good, it would have been more like 4.5, 5. But yeah, Miami are favored in this game. I hope they go out there and show everybody why.
Awesome. Don, I know we got to get rid of you now, man. Ugh, why you got to go? No, man. We appreciate you coming on the show, and we hope to have you on more often too.
Yeah, but actually, before you go, plug.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Oh,
I'm not done, Vish.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. You're getting.
I'm getting to it, man.
Hey.
I know you're getting anxious over there, because we got to tell some of these guys something. But anyways,
yeah, but
let them know, Donno.
We got to do some manscaping and stuff. So I was wondering,
nice,
I don't know about you. I'm not doing any during the show. That's kind of
no. I told you to bring that cookie sponsorship in. I haven't heard any follow up on that.
Oh, I love it. Well, yeah. So you guys can check out. I do probably more content than I should on the Locked On Canes channel. Oh, and Rob is one of our guys. Thank you so much, Rob. I think I've seen a couple people in here who listen to and watch our stuff as well. Locked On Canes on YouTube. Also, I appreciate it, Rob. Also, the audio channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, pretty much wherever you get your pods. Locked On Canes, and yeah, I do. Dolphin stuff as well with 5 Reasons, so you guys can see me on this very network as well. And thanks so much for having me, guys. I always enjoy talking to you.
Always.
Thanks, Donno. Good to have you.
Yeah. You're always welcome here, brother. Your family.
I appreciate it. I miss Blue. I know Blue had to host his radio show tonight, but I had him on Locked On today, so I'm glad I did. So I didn't realize I'd miss him here, so I'm glad I got to talk to him today.
There you go. Yeah, we're gonna have to try to figure something out with Blue now. Oh, unbelievable! There's people over there at the company.
Yeah, he's got a new time slot which runs completely over our show. So
it is what it is.
I'll see you guys.
Donno, thanks, brother. Take care.
Bye, Donno.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, everybody.